Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the end of summer, early fall webinar series. Our illustrious Presidium, IAESS Presidium is joining us with our guest speaker today, Jonathan Ballou. I'd like to just give you an introduction for today and talk a little bit about our mission, International Association of Education and Science and Snow Sports. Pretty much our mission is in our name. Tagline is where science meets practice. We are one of the pillar associations that works very closely with Interski International to put on these international educational events, as well as work with colleagues from around the world to bridge the gap between theory and practice. Here's our board. Vanessa Mann is our General Secretary, Asa Tugatan from Sweden, Pete Allison from Nashville, Tennessee, Professor Rado Piso from Slovenia, myself, Dave Schuling, Director of Education with PSIA and AASI, Chris from Bulgaria, Gerhard Anger from Austria, Peter Maul sits as the General Secretary for Interski International, and our President Dieter Bubeck from Germany is with us today as well. Some of the things that we continue to do, as mentioned, we provide online seminars, provide infographics and simplicity around all the different projects that we're working on within science and practice. Have a key piece with development and planning for Interski programming. We welcome you to visit our social media channels. Mainly, most activity is on Instagram, as well as our website is iaess.org. And then we've got, want to just thank everybody for helping to host these webinars, folks that behind the scenes that put these on and develop the programming and get our guest speakers. And speaking of our guest speakers, today we've got three-term team member, PSIA, team member Jonathan Ballou. He's also worldwide educator in snow sports, as well as a very proficient bassist, jazz bassist. Wanted to add that for those of you that didn't know that about Jonathan Ballou. But I'm going to kick it over to him now and allow him to take it away. We've got skiing and contemporary mechanics, output and input. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Ballou.
Oh, hello, everybody. Yeah, no applause necessary there. With me also is the President Josh Fogg. Who may chime in and share words of wisdom at different times, or may not. I would say by that expression, not. And let me put up my presentation here, and we will get into it. Guys, thank you very much, and thanks to IAESS. I learned something. I now know what IAESS stands for, which I didn't before. So thank you, Dave. That was very informative. Josh is nodding because he now knows what it stands for also. And it is a very apt name, as you told me after the change from IBSI. Hey, so I'm Jonathan Ballou. As Dave said, I was on the PSI Alpine team for national team for 12 years. Stepped off this last to pursue some other interests and become more involved in other aspects of the organization. One of them is a role with ISIA on the technical commission, which is becoming very rewarding and super interesting. And past all of that, I've been really involved in both PSI and NZSIA, the New Zealand Association, for a long time. A relationship with the Danish organization and some other organizations around the world. Worked in China quite a bit. And as Dave said, this is the title of this is kind of contemporary mechanics, skiing output to input. Honestly, guys, the name of this was a little arbitrary. And when I was asked to do this, I had various concepts of what I wanted to speak about, but I wanted to leave some options because I wanted to let some time for my thoughts to simmer. So when I gave Dave the title and the description, he said, yeah, it's pretty open. I think he said, so y'all going to learn a whole bunch of stuff. Got it. That's what the title meant to him. So what we're really going to talk about here is kind of a construct for how I look at great skiing and some key points that I find deeply meaningful about how I ski, how I analyze skiing, how I teach and where my values are. This is not representing any particular organization, but the concepts are pretty straightforward, and I personally believe they're universally compatible, and they're things that when I've worked with various other countries or at Interski, they're kind of non-arguables for them. But hopefully you get something out of it as my take in it. There we go. For all of you hoping to learn the world's best kept secrets to awesomeness on snow, I have some very unfortunate news for you. To quote Dominic from the Austrian Association, my absolute favorite quote from the 23 Interski, sat in a room in the Austrian presentation, and we're actually sitting next to Josh Fogg in this presentation and Michael Rogan, and we were waiting to hear the new technical stuff from the Austrians. Thought it was gonna be awesome. He said, "I'm really sorry, we don't have any new technical information for you because skiing has already been invented." And well, that is true. Skiing has been invented, and I'm not the one who invented it. So what I can really do is relay to you some of the more important things from that invention that from my experience are essential elements of great skiing. And there are things that keep coming back over and over and over again. No matter what the fad is, there's this kind of center line of how we manage force and ski down a hill that becomes this core for how we operate. And we see a lot of new things come in, fads go in and out, and they're usually additive, but there is some truths down the middle that if we understand those well, it becomes the construct for how we understand skiing as a whole. And then we don't understand it from these peripheral detail-based concepts, but from a big picture things. In reality, skiing is not complicated. It's incredibly difficult, but it's not complicated. And the difficulty is in the mastery of the simple concepts, not the mastery of the complex details. So the concepts we're going to discuss are really relatively simple to grasp. They're big picture and they're timeless. Some of them aren't even from skiing at all. They're just concepts of how we move. So depending on what your experience is in the industry, we have a few hundred people on here, 250 or so, plus whoever's extra people in rooms, right? So call it a few hundred. So there's a lot of different levels in here. While we're going to be talking about expert skiing and really from the perspective of sort of medium radius or high performance on-piste skiing, it doesn't matter what your level is. These are the same things that I introduce to first-time skiers, beginners. When I was working on a ski simulator, which I've done a lot of that as well, I teach this at every level. I mean, when I go lead a national academy or I go work with another association, I'm usually basing it off these same things. So if you're an enthusiast, a novice, an aspiring intermediate, aspiring expert skier, a seasoned professional, it doesn't matter. These concepts should be pretty straightforward. Okay, getting into it. We're going to talk about skiing from kind of three different places. This is the construct we're going to look at from big picture to more detailed. And the big picture is pretty comprehensive. We're going to look at some ski-snow interaction pieces. And as we get down into the details, it's going to be less comprehensive. So the three areas we'll kind of talk about here is imperatives in ski-snow interaction that I really value. Control of the equipment, meaning the boots and the skis, so how you manage those, and then control of the body. And it's in that order because skiing is externally focused. It's about the tool. It's about the tool interacting with the snow. It's not called bodying for a reason. It's called skiing. So we use our body to control the boots to manage force from the snow. So those are the three places we're going to look at building from the ground up. Dave already said this. We got about a 40-minute presentation, maybe a little less from when I started, or as Josh might say, maybe a little more. But if you have questions, just pop them in there and we can get to them. I am not afraid to be interrupted. Okay, let's take a look at some skiing. We're gonna watch a video here. And is that better, guys? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. We're gonna look at a video here. This video, and I apologize if you can't see it for some reason, but depending on your internet connection. But this is a video of Michaela Schifrin training at Round Hill in New Zealand. It's old. It's 2016. And the reason I picked this is Well, one, it was really impactful to me in 2016, watching this athlete, this phenomenal athlete, grow from a slalom specialist to an all-around best skier in the world. And this was kind of in that era when that was happening. She, prior to this season, hadn't had a lot of success in GS, and her GS career really started to take on me. You're talking about the best skier in the world not having a lot of success. It was a fair amount of success, right? But more than the average immortal, but not necessarily, you know, the amount of globes she's gotten in this discipline and the incredible winning streak she's had. And what really changed for me in seeing this was this balance between glide and power, two concepts that I think are really important, and they're not on off. There was a period of time when in slalom skiing, for example, GS was like this as well, where it was all off, then all on, super short pressure phase, really off again. So you'd see this really abrupt power phase, then absolutely nothing from the snow, and then a really abrupt power phase going the other way. What really struck me on this, and it is as I watched in her skiing and I watched her develop and then added it to mine, is this absolute balance between power and glide. The power comes on slowly, but only so much that she gets just enough from the snow to make her skis turn in a clean line the direction she's going. No point is the ski buried in the snow. Is it breaking the snow? Is it dug in? And when the ski releases, when the power releases and starts to dial off, not all off, but dials back, the ski doesn't leave the snow. They don't fly apart. There's no porpoising or dolphining in this. The skis stay on the snow, using the ski's mechanics to glide across the snow without a complete release. So the glide in between turns happens more along the straight line between the arcs, and the arcs between those glide phases, those transitions, they don't penetrate the snow so far that they slow down, but they keep that effortless, smooth flowing feeling there. And what we get when we put those balance of glide and power together, you get grace, you get flow, you get all the art that is skiing, all the stylistic beauty that we see in minimalism, and not just overpowering mechanics and technique. How we manage and where we manage the balance between glide and power is core to my belief system. So let's take a look at that first. In the interest of time, I was going to show some Stenmark because he does it well. We're going to watch it. And the reason I'm showing this is because it's just as awesome from a different era. It shows the timelessness of it. If you look at just the outside ski, not the inside ski picking up and moving around, that outside ski goes from gradual power with glide to gradual power decrease with glide. You see the body stable, the torso's really locked in. You see the head and upper body pelvis kind of following the skis in the course of travel of the mass down the hill. There's a lot of flow. There's a lot of distraction too, because we're talking 1983. Cross blocking's new, breakaway gates are new, skis are very different. But you look at what the outside ski is doing on the snow and the connection to the body, you still see some of the same stuff, or all the same stuff. Best in the world, always the best in the world. All right. So this is kind of foundational. It's not kind of. This is absolutely foundational to the ideas of managing and balancing glide and power. Okay. First of all, it's a perspective. We need to understand a little bit about physics, because skiing, at the heart of it, is managing external forces. What I mean by that is skiing is managing, in really simple terms, being pushed. Gravity pushes you down the hill. At least that's what the quantum physicists tell me. It doesn't pull, it pushes. And then turning is the snow pushing against you to turn you somewhere. It's really important to have this perspective, because a lot of us talk about, I'm going to press on the outside ski, I'm going to create power, I'm going to push hard to make something happen. And you can push on the ground all you want, but it ain't going to do anything. Power comes from gravity, your momentum, and what your ski does in the snow. And it's really all based on, to make it, to pull it out of skiing for a second, it's kind of based on, it is based on Newton's second law. That's force equals mass times acceleration. It's an equation, but what it really means in layman's term is stuff goes in the direction that it's pushed. If I want to go to the right, if something pushes me from the left, I'm going to go to the right. If something pushes me to the right, I will always go to the left. The force pushing, if I'm going to the right, the force pushing me to the right comes from the left. It never works the other way. And what we're trying to do in skiing is to get power to push us across the hill in some way, to move from arc to arc. And these lines show where it's coming from. It's not the force going outward. We may feel that. And sure, I'm not going to go into a theoretical argument whether that's correct or not. But this is from the observer's perspective and from your ski's perspective, if it had a consciousness. This is where it's being felt from. And we want to move with that force, not against it, not pushing against it. We want to align ourselves to receive this force so we can manipulate it, use it, and go with it as opposed to go against it. And I see this perspective is really key, because if we understand the force is coming from the snow to us to move us from arc to arc, we set ourselves up in an alignment to receive force versus an alignment to create and push. And that creates really different outcomes. The alignment to receive creates this nimble, resilient, mobile, and strong posture that you can do a lot of things from, and for, frankly, less effort. The latter creates the idea of push. I'm going to drive, I'm going to push hard, creates this really aggressive and confrontational body posture. The former, the receiving idea, kind of as the Austrians say, it creates or encourages a conversation with the mountain, where this more I'm going to drive the ski might create more of an argument. And yeah, I think we would like to get the former, not the latter, because to me, that is where real expert skiing comes from. Okay, so a little more on this one. The earth doesn't care where you get the force from skiing to turn you. You can see in this, I've got these little angles, these points on this diagram where the force is smaller here and it's largest here. That's always the case. It's never the largest in the middle. It's always right below the fall line. It's really easy to get stuff in the bottom part of this. It's really easy to get stuff down here in the bottom part of this. It's really hard and almost to get stuff here. It's impossible to get force here. But the key is great skiers get force in this area where those three lines are. They don't leave it down here because that's super easy. They don't try to create more than is going to happen up here. They align themselves to receive force early, which means they align before the force happens, so that when the force starts to come on in this upper part, they can maximize every second of it, so that they can not push on the ski or drive the ski or bury the ski at the bottom, but begin a release process that lets the ski glide. And in doing so, by setting us up for alignment, we keep the ski gliding at all times, even when it's up. Okay. Are you great? Move on. Come on, go forward. There we go. Oh, my drawings are still there. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Oh, there it is. My bad. Sorry, I haven't used Zoom in a little while. So we're all drawings. We're going to take a look at this. This is Michaela Schifrin skiing a little later than what we just saw. And whoop, that's not what I want. Get out of this. Okay. What I'm looking for here is looking at her skiing in this video from the perspective of receiving force, not from the perspective of driving and pushing. And things that I see that show me this is, and remember, this is 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago. She's a much stronger skier now than she was then. This is still phenomenal. And I really like this video because of the quality of the slow motion and what's captured. What I'm seeing here is this uninterrupted path of the ski. Both skis, yes, outside ski for sure, where it stays on its line. Even if it's bumping around a little bit, it doesn't bury. It runs along the length of it. There's a lot of simplicity here. There's not a lot of extra movement. And what we get from this aligning to receive force and managing it, we have this quiet body that is ergonomic, it's safe, it's strong, it moves well, it's nimble, and really fast skis, and ultimately incredibly simple ski. Let that sink in for just a second. Pete and Dave, how are we doing on questions?
We're doing good so far. We're
Cool.
managing the ones just typing them out.
Oh, thank you.
You bet.
All right. All right. We're going to look at that video again. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some fundamentals of how you align your body to get pushed, or how you set your body up to receive force. Think of like if you're doing a squat, right? When you do a squat, you're not trying to create a bunch of power, because the weight does that for you. What you're trying to do is set yourself up to have a strong spine, strong core, glute engagement, posterior chain engagement, muscles around the feet and the ankles, the tib anterior, shoulder blades, all that stuff gets engaged. And you need to do that before the weight comes on, because you're setting yourself up to receive the bar on your back. And then from there, you can move with it. You set yourself up to push on it, it's quite different. You're going to end up with some very different muscle groups working. So skiing is not that dissimilar. We need to set ourselves up as just as we would walking up to a squat bar to receive the force that's going to happen from the snow. Now, it's a little different than squat bar because the force isn't coming from your shoulders, it's coming from your feet. But we still need, what we need is two, in my opinion, two core areas of stability. These things don't move a lot. This is really important. These two things that we're going to get into, they don't move a lot. They are supposed to be stable, not static, but stable. Okay. First thing here is the use of the ski boot interface to receive force to the body. If you want to receive force through the ski well, the snow pushes on the ski transfers the force through your boot to your body. That interface needs to be stable, okay? It's not about moving, it's not about opening and closing the ankle, it's not about coming off the cuff of the boot or pushing on the back or driving into the front of the boot to bend it. It's about staying connected. It's about having the foot firmly planted in the ground, not having the heel up, not having the toes up, but having the whole foot down in the heel pocket. Front shin muscle, the anterior tibialis, the little triangular muscle in the front of your shin, that sucker is engaged, as is all the other muscles that go around it, to keep the structure of the inherently mobile ankle joint strong and engaged with the boot, so that the force coming through the ski gets transferred through the boot to your body. That is your immediate receptor. If you don't have that, nothing else happens. You can't control the skis without controlling the boot. You can't control the boot without being in contact with the key parts of it. It's the bottom, it's the front, that's really the whole cuff, but there's more on the front than there's the back. Okay.
Jonathan, we've got a question. Can I interrupt you just? You've used the term bury the edge. Can you explain more? Do you mean the edge starts to skid?
Bury the edge. It's when you overpower the ski. Sometimes the snow deforms, you get chip deformation, the ski breaks it free. It may be overpowered that way. It may come shoot back at you. It may bury the tip and slow it down. But what I'm looking for is the minimal amount of pressure to get the ski to go on the arc I look for and what I want, not the most. When you get the most, what happens, the ski buries and slows down. It creates this sort of speed up, slow down in skiing. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, of course. If we had more time, I could show you some pictures of people or video of people burying the ski versus gliding. We're not going to get into that right now, but there's, if you keep that in mind, I think whoever's asking, you can probably find that information pretty easily. Okay. Key here is I didn't talk about moving the ankle. I talked about stabilizing it. Using the muscles in the boot, muscles in the leg, lower leg against the boot to stabilize the ankle as opposed to move it around. Because the boot doesn't have hinges that moves around. It's got a hinge, but it's also got rivets in it that stops it from moving. So basically it's designed to hold you in a certain place where the designers say, this is how the force moves from the ski through the boot to the body. So your job of your ankles is to stay with the design of that. Okay. So that's how we receive the force. Here's how we use it. It's got to be, your torso has to be stabilized. It's not just your core, it's not just your pelvis, it's everything. When I'm talking about that, when I'm talking about the core in skiing, when I'm talking about the upper body in skiing, I'm talking about everything from the bottom of your bum to the top of your shoulders. I'm talking about the entire front and back half, from your hip to your shoulder. All of this hypermobile stuff that we have between the hip joints and how the spine can move in all its dimensions, that stuff has to be stable, because this is the mass of your body. And that when you put these things together, the stable ankles, the stable ski snow interaction, pushing force through the boot, through a stable ankle and structure of base of support into the strong core, the force terminates there and pushes us, right? If the core is floppy and your ankles are strong, this force is going to travel through a floppy body, and we're not really going to go anywhere we want to go. If your core is floppy, your core is strong, but your ankles are floppy and they're open, you're going to be dissipating the force you get from the ski, and the ski's not going to do what you want. It's this balance of these three things, of the ski moving through the snow to create enough power to turn you. It's the control of the equipment through stability inside of the boot and ankle, and then control of the body inside of the boot and to the core to be able to receive, manage the force, and have it take you somewhere. All right. What we're going to do, we're going to watch this really quickly, maybe 30 seconds. And I want to take a look at these key points. So before I play it, key points are this: the ski's bouncing around. That snow is rough and gnarly, but look at the boot and ankle interface. It stays, at least with the intention of staying very consistent. While the ski is moving around a lot, if you look at the ankles, they're simple. They're pressed against the front of the boot. There's strength there. They're holding posture, not moving around, holding posture. And then the body is super stable so that it can receive the force and move to the next gate. The result is force generated through the balance of power and glide, not too much force to stop the glide, not too much glide to stop the force, right? Passes through the ski, through the gear, through the body, pushes the mass, which is all stabilized.
Jonathan, we've got a couple of questions when you're ready.
Go for it. Yep.
Okay, great. First one, why the focus on the front of the cuff as opposed to staying centered?
Well, that's a really good question. If your boot fits well, you should have contact in all parts. Okay. The boot is also a lever on the ski. If you were supposed to be totally centered all the time, the boot would probably be more straight up and down. It is angled forward to give you some more power to the front of it as you need it. And at the beginning of the turn, you probably have middle turns, a little more pressure on the cuff, and then as you move through the end, you might release a little bit of that or soften that. But if you don't have cuff pressure, like forward cuff pressure, you lose quite a bit of control. And some of that has also to do with how the muscles work in the ankle being triplanar, that you want the closing muscles, not the opening muscles. So like the tib anterior and the peroneal muscles to be firing so that you have control of the bottom of the foot to articulate. So there's a few different reasons in there, but the boot design is designed to pitch you slightly forward. And so we use that, right? And I'm not saying crush the cuff of the boot. I'm saying hold yourself in contact. And then you have movement that is, to me, centered. So that's probably a better way to answer that. Centered on the ski is whole foot on the boot, there's power going through the heel, and there is pressure to the front of the cuff. Your boot fits really well, you have pressure all the way around, but you should have pressure on the cuff. Right? Okay, is there another one?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I think that's helpful, thinking about, contact with the cuff rather than applying tons of pressure on it and getting blisters on your shin, which,
yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using your muscles to hold that shin bone up against the front of the boot, not to bend the boot. You're not trying to form it, just trying to stay in contact with it, because that is your lever. And the front of it is better lever than the back of it for the ski.
Okay, next question. Is there a certain angle of inclination, angle of slope, speed of turn, or style of skiing in which you would want to consider dragging the inside hand in turning? What would you say is the main thing to remember with hand placement? Obviously, hand dragging is not always recommended, but alas.
Hey, it's fun. I like throwing my inside hand down and bouncing my butt off the ground as much as anybody. I can tell you, Blizzard asks me to do that regularly for a picture, and I use my inside hand to guide how far I can drop my hip to the ground for a picture, but that's really aesthetic skiing. But for me, arm position relates to core position. And if I try to keep my arms incredibly stable when I ski, let's look at her. This is a great example. We're talking about the best skier in the world, not me in this one. So yeah, maybe it's certain degrees of inclination. The inside hand touches the ground a little bit, like almost right there, but it's not by reaching for it. It's just because the force from the outside pushing in created a really high degree of inclination. When that high degree of inclination or lean happens, the inside hand, like it's just barely touched the ground, but you didn't see it really drop down to do that. It's just because the body, the stable weather, touched the ground there too, because the stable body got pushed that far in. You know, I think that the key to the question is probably, as I think about that, is the answer is it's not something that in great skiing I try to do. It's something that sometimes happens because of the quantity of external force in the slope of the hill. If it happens, great. But the thing to measure, to keep in mind for the tip that's being asked is to not try to do that. Not try to reach to the ground. And ensure that when that does happen, that it's not so that does if it touches the ground, that doesn't create another point of force that you're pushing on or holding yourself up, that you're still balanced against the outside ski.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Sorry, it was a little rambly of an answer. I apologize. It's a good question. A lot of the stuff we see with hip dragging or hand dragging, it's an aesthetic style versus a performance, a high level of performance. You have to be able to ski high performance to do that well, no question. But it's emulating things on the World Cup that happened more often as a result of other things as opposed to intention. And it's very topical right now to post pictures. I'm guilty of this with really high degree of inclination. It's exciting. It's fun to watch. It's inspiring. So it's cool. And I'm not knocking that because it is cool. It's not a core element to me. Okay. All right. Let's look at some key elements of transition. And why I want to talk about transition is the first thing I said. You know, we are setting up to receive force, not to push, not to drive. And the time to set up for force is when you're gliding the most and you have the least power on the skis. You don't set your body up, using the squat rack analogy. You don't set your body to lift the weight or to push the weight after the weight's already pushing on you. You set it before you pull the weight off the bar. If you're going to do a bicep curl, whatever it is, you tense and engage the things before the weight's there. So when the weight's there, your body is prepped and ready for it. And you can manipulate whatever you need to do with that weight. And skiing is the same thing. The period of time where you have the least pushing on you, there's still some, but you're the least pushing on you, is when the skis are releasing to engaging. So it's when they go from the old edges to the flat to the new edges, or from the old edges to the flat. That period of time has the least force. So that's really your opportunity to align your body well to receive force. And we're going to look at a couple elements. This is not a comprehensive list. We don't have time for that. But these are two really core areas to look at. And there's two in each of these. So 2 areas in control of the equipment and 2 areas in control of the body. Okay. There are things you can feel. There are things you can see. There are things you can coach yourself to. And there are things that you can coach other people to, depending on where you are in this wonderful industry of skiing. Okay. Oh, they all popped up. I thought they were going to pop up in pairs. We have control of equipment. Take a look at that first. Alignment to the outside ski before edge change. We're going to get into that in a second. Notice I said alignment to the outside ski before edge change, not weight shift before edge change. Those are very different things. Weight shift means I'm going to push from one to the other, where alignment is about setting up to receive. And I can set up alignment to the new outside ski while I'm on my old edges or as I release without moving uphill and moving outside of the line of travel or pushing weight on. I can align that way, right? So that's a thought process of a more passive, more graceful, more receiving force mentality. That will get paired with ankle symmetry. We already talked about that, but we're going to look at it again. The next one is edge change under the body and prior to lead change. Meaning, you always have one ski ahead of the other. Inside ski is always a little ahead of the outside ski for the most part. Well, as we move through transition, I like to see the edges change prior to the lead changing, because that, if we control the equipment that way, it prompts the body to maintain that. And that goes to maintenance of counter and separation for the alpine basic position through that unloaded period of time. So we don't do a whole bunch of extra moving at that period of time, but whatever the posture we've created through building of the position through the finish of the finish of the last turn, we maintain into the new turn. And these two things fit together. Okay. Something to look at there is when I say edge change under the body, it is in contradiction to say, chuck the body down the hill to change the edges. These are all very controlled movements versus big movements. And it speaks to, Josh and I were talking the other day about toppling. People talk a lot about toppling, and when I hear it talked about quite often, it's the idea that we fall out of balance into the new turn and catch ourselves in the turn. Yeah, there's some physics principles that support that. And I love the way the late great Ron LeMaster wrote about that. I think it's phenomenal how he wrote about it. And in conversations with him, we talked about that as a very controlled movement of releasing and controlling the movement into gravity across the ski, and not 100% in, but it's a controlled movement where I hold these key areas of alignment. Okay, let's take a look at the first two. Alignment to the outside ski and ankle symmetry. So, thing here. This is Alexei Pontero a few years ago, and we can see that if we look here, right up in here, look at this frame right here that I'm drawing on, you can kind of see that. He is already starting to align the body to this new ski. In this case, it's his left ski as he's about to make a right turn around this gate. You can see that that ski is being positioned under his body. He's not moving up the hill to get to it, and there's not much weight on the ski, but he's got the sucker underneath him so that as soon as it achieves edge, he's already aligned to it. There's not a lot of pressure there, but he is aligned to it so that when the pressure comes on down here, which is still really quite high in the turn, he doesn't have to make any adjustments. You can see that by the path of the body through here. There's no gross movements of the body to align to the ski. He's already there. In fact, if we look at it from this top picture here, and we look at the path of the body all the way through, there are not a lot of gross movements to correct. He didn't incline a lot and then have to come back out. He got himself set up on this new left foot ski, prior to it having pressure. And not by moving out of the line, not by pushing on it, just by aligning to where his body needs to be relative to the ski to receive force. And then he can align the ski underneath him to create and receive the force. And obviously we can look and see, okay, we've got in every frame here, we have symmetry of angles. We don't see the boot being crushed or bent more. We just see it fitting well and the body aligning at all phases, both ankles symmetrically against them. No extra movement this way, no extra movement that way, no extra movement that way. Right? It's just aligned. All right.
Jonathan, we've got a question that relates
I'm in.
directly to that, which is when you talk about aligning to the ski, are we talking about the hips or the entire upper body?
Really good question. It is the whole upper body. It's everything. But what you're really aligning is so that the force of the what we call the resultant force, the turning force, the force that comes through the outside ski, comes up through the body and through the center of mass. It requires, it's not just the hips, you're not over it, but as the ski and body incline, that the hips, pelvis, torso, spine in a very stable manner, not with bending and doing weird stuff, but keeping stability, it tilts on top of the legs that are tilting in, so that the force passes through the ski into the middle of the body. So is it the hips? Is it the upper body? Is it the spine? Is it the arms? Is it the shoulders? Yes, they move as a unit, and that's part of the stability. If we're moving only our hips or only our spine, we've broken that first thing I was talking about with of points of stability. one of our points of stability is no longer stable.
Great,
Okay.
thanks. I've got two more questions, but do you
Yep.
want me to wait for a minute?
Yeah,
for
no,
that?
go for it.
Okay. One here is always hear about points of angulation, ankle, knee, and hip. How would you allocate 100% of those three sources? Can you actually angulate at the boot, or is it mostly inclination at the angle?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, hold on. Right, easier if I do this. Angulation means to create angles. Means you got to bend something to do it. Trying to buckle my boot here. There we go. Come on. There we go. Okay. So I have this lovely Technica boot here, best boot in the world. It definitely. I was going to say something about Rossnell, but I won't. This boot has a hinge here, but it has two bolts that stop the hinge. Right. I can tilt it this way, but there's not a lot of. It doesn't bend this way. I can tilt it, which means my ankle can't move a lot more than what the boot can do. So ankle angulation, really how I think of it, whether this is 100% right or not, definitely how I think of it, which is ankle angulation is creating a little inversion, eversion, or movement in the foot to stimulate some movement of the legs moving in. So that you start, it's about setting up the structure. It's not about actually bending the ankle, but kind of engaging the muscles in the feet and shins and sides of the legs to tip the foot just ever so slightly so the legs can rotate in and tilt in, okay? The knees have an appearance of angulation because of a rotational component and because of a flexion, but your knees only bend laterally once every 6 months or so, and then you got to get them fixed again. So I don't recommend, we think of knee angulation as actually bending lateral angles at the knee. It's an appearance of it. And we can see it here in this guy, and Alexi, there is some there where the shin is tilted in more than the femur, which is tilted in more than the spine, right? But the majority of the angle is coming out of the hip, is probably the best way to put that. That's the other stuff is sympathetic. The feet definitely start it. That's a great place to start it, but there's not much you can do. The knees are an appearance, they're not real angulation, and then most of it comes out of the hip.
Thanks, Jonathan.
No problem.
Well, one last one. I'm going to do an abbreviated version of this because it's a long question. It's about
So
beginners.
it's okay. We're making good time here.
It's about beginners, but it's basically says I agree with what you're saying about balancing and managing forces are the key points. But how do you explain this to a beginner? Is it correct to tell them to focus on feeling the pressure on the outside ski?
Oh my God, yes, please. Absolutely, 100%. Hallelujah. Do it. These are not concepts that are unique to skiing. Cars work this way. Your bicycle works this way. Motorcycles work this way. Roller skating works this way. This is how the universe works. These are the laws of physics. A lot of people we're teaching to ski have an understanding that will absolutely allow them to handle more complex concepts, not complex, but more real concepts than we give them credit for. I firmly believe, tell it like it is to beginners, but not in detail. There's not a lot of detail here. Balance against the outside ski. Let the outside ski push you. Feel the force come through the outside ski. If outside doesn't work, feel the force come through the left foot when you go right. Try to set your body up so your left foot's heavier while you're going right. However that works, but absolutely 100%. A really good friend of mine, who some of you may know, legendary guy, Peter Kowal from Béziers, and works in France now. About 15 years ago, we were coaching together, and he said this brilliant statement it was a level 1 candidate and an okay skier who has become since a really phenomenal skier, I think in part because of his coaching. He says to this person, I'm going to paraphrase because it's 15 years ago, so I don't remember exact words, but as soon as you learn to just tip the ski over and feel it push against you, and just go with that, skiing is going to be incredibly easy. And it can be that simple. Can I move on?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. I don't have too much more here, but I want to get to this last slide. So I see there's some hands up and some questions. I'll get through this one pretty quickly, and then we can this is really quick. Bunch of stuff on that one. Okay, so we're talking about edge change, lead change, and counter. I talked about edge change before lead change, and I talked about edge change under the body and how it relates to counter. Here we go. Let's take a look at this one. This one's pretty straightforward. All right. When we look at this person who is, I'm not sure who this is. Sweet. From my library. We have the skis. Here's the body, right? Whoop. There. Here's the skis down here. They're under the body. This body's not way up the hill. That would interfere with both the edge change and the ability to not move up to the balance, the alignment to the outside ski. As we move from here to here, skis kind of go in a straight line, body goes in a straight line, and they are still roughly under the body as we've changed. There's no big huck movement. It's a subtle movement. As we can see, it came much more from the feet and ankles over a big movement of the torso. And we can see that because the torsos look very, very similar. Torso, hand position, hip position looks very similar from the end of the old turn to the beginning of the new turn, which shows that we have this controlled movement of edge change from the feet and legs, not from the body. The body's included, but it goes, it comes after and goes with that. You set it up first. This is all part of that setup. Okay. Here's another piece to that. Look at the position of the skis. This uphill ski is slight, this one here, that guy here, I'll get rid of the pictures. This ski here is a little ahead of that one. There. When we look here, we've gone through an edge change and we still don't see an advancing inside ski yet. This ski is not advanced of this ski. The outside, the new outside ski, old inside ski, has a very similar placing on the snow to 2 feet. Now, if we looked at one frame earlier, which I don't have right here, you'd see the same lead change. So we start to see it neutralize here. But what's key is we have not yet seen an advanced inside ski, which you shouldn't have much of that in your skiing. It should be, but there's always going to be some because of how the body aligned. Okay, and then we get down here, you can kind of see it. You can see that the inside half of the body, the inside shin, inside hip, and inside foot, inside ankle are ahead of the outside. The reason I'm talking about this at transition is because if our edge changes under the body, we control the amount of tipping we get. So that creates a controlled movement into the turn. If we manage the edge change, the foot, foot placement, so the lead, and kind of hold that while we move across, going to be some movement, but delaying the advancing of any inside foot, we maintain both the integrity of the ankles and we send a message up to the body to hold this torso. Here's my marker there. Stable from here to there. So we don't end up with extra counter, extra rotation, extra movement, but we end up with this smooth, uninterrupted path of a stable mass in upper body over a smooth and uninterrupted path of a stable base support, so that when this power comes on, which is down here, well, you're stable and you're aligned.
Jonathan, quick question there,
Yeah.
just about, I think, so this is a topic we've talked about a lot about, you know, language and different kind of systems and cultures and countries. Is the alignment concept the same as stacking bones and muscles to create an efficient biomechanics position? You know, in a lot of countries, people talk about stacking.
Very often it is. I use the term alignment because stacking is often, there's nothing wrong with the term. Any language that works for you is the right language. I'm using the language that works for me. Stacking is fine. For me, it paints a static image instead of an image in motion. That's because to stay in alignment, look at this turn here. This is fortuitous that I advanced the slide. The skis are changing their attitude, their pitch, their yaw, their angle. So the legs, so the boots, so is the body through all phases. She remains stacked by continually adapting her movements to stay aligned. Put it all together that way, right? But I don't see, I don't use the term stacked because of the static nature of it. Alignment is dynamic. However, stacked, yes, it's the same thing. From a stable position, if you just were to take a freeze frame, any one of these freeze frames, Michaela Shiffrin is stacked. I think she can manage her alignment through the course of a turn, through deliberate and controlled motion, and in particular in the areas we're talking about. But language is language. It's all made up. So whatever it is you want to use the word for, if it means the right thing, we're good. Was that it, Pete?
Yeah, I think that's good for now. We've got some other questions, but clearly we're going to have to get you on again, but we'll
I'm gonna wrap this up here, and I'll have time for 2 more. These are some concluding thoughts. Let's just take a look at this. Really, skiing is about output over input. All of our technique that we have, where the system you're coming from, has evolved over time to help you manage the force from the snow. They're all right in their own areas, and they all have areas where there's aesthetics and extra discipline that's probably not necessary in the end result. But skiing is about managing force. Great skiers manage force better than lesser skiers. The better you get at managing force, the better skier you'll become. The context for managing force, the perspective, is that force comes from the ground to us, and that's what we manage. It's not that we create it. It's created by the action of the ski in the snow, not by us pushing or something we do on our body. It's by having the ski tipped over and engaging with the snow. And we need to align our body to receive that force so it can take us somewhere. If you want to do that in the most efficient way that creates the most potential power and the most glide, start that in transition when there's less force on your body. Focus on the elements of alignment we just talked about, which is strong shin and ankle engagement. That is controlled and disciplined movements of the skis tipping under the body, not the body flopping down the hill over the top of the skis. So we stay close to the outside ski and let it so it can push us. Focus on, where the other two, there is the, focus on holding the fore-aft alignment of the skis as you tip so that we don't interrupt stability of the body. We can keep the body moving on a concentric, like concentric, but a sympathetic arc to the skis. And hold the tension in the core at all times, which will look like we have an element of counter through the finish. Counter could be counteraction, could be rotational separation, rotational lateral separation. It all works. It's a question of what system you're coming from. But you hold that disciplined posture from edge to edge to align yourself to the new outside ski so that when the force comes on, as early as it does, not as early as you can create it, but as early as it does, you will have the discipline and stability to manage it. Peeps, that's what I got. There's more for double the price, which is still 0. So, but not today. I can answer a couple questions though.
I can jump in with those. First of all, before people start leaving, I want to thank you on behalf of IESS and of everybody here. And a couple of the comments express that in the Q&A. So thanks, Jonathan. This is brilliant. We really appreciate it, and we will certainly be hoping to persuade you to come back on again for another session, because there's a lot of these questions. Here's a couple of the questions, just partially because you might be able to answer some quickly, and partially because they might steer a future session. What's your view of anticipation? Can you address the tactical changes you would make for these fundamentals for other types of skiing, bumps, crud, etc.?
Okay. Anticipation is, just to jump in, I understand the question, Pete, so I'm just going to jump in so we get to this in another one. Anticipation is holding the posture we created at the end of the old turn into the beginning of the new turn through release. So my idea of edge change before lead change and holding that separation, that is anticipation. The amount is really what this person is asking about in terrain. It's this. All of those are present for me in bumps, in powder, in crud. Great skiing is great skiing, doesn't matter where it is, but the amount of it might be different. In a shorter turn, I'm going to have more anticipation or more separation or more counter through that transitional period than I will in a much longer turn. If I'm on a longer turn on a slalom ski, I'm probably going to have less separation than a medium turn on a slalom ski. I'm going to have less separation than if I have a medium turn on a GS ski, just because of the nature of the skis. In the bumps, I'm going to have quite a bit more because it's really short turn. The key elements we just talked about are still there. And I picked those elements because they don't change to me when I change equipment or when I change, other than the amount, they don't change on equipment, pitch, terrain, they're just there. There's other things we could talk about if we wanted to go into bump skiing. Like, okay, how's bump skiing vary from slalom skiing? Yeah, we can get into that. There are things that change, just not the stuff we talked about here. One
Great.
more.
Thanks, Jonathan. Lots of other questions and praise here. Just two things. So this recording will be on iass.org for those people who are asking about that. Lots of questions about magnitude of pressure. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it means amount. It is the amount pushing on you at any given time. And it's the amount is what it will be based on the turn radius, the speed, the snow conditions, the tune of your ski, how much grip you're choosing to get, the pitch of the hill. But it is the amount that's generated. What's important is that you don't generate the amount. It's resultant of these external things we just talked about. So I see that in PSI quite a lot. It's that fifth fundamental where people are trying to actively adjust the magnitude. You can release it, of course, by absorption, right? But we don't. It's the amount you're dealing with, which is dictated by speed, conditions, equipment, pitch.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan. In efforts of time, it is the top of the hour, so we'll let you let everybody get on with the rest of their days and or evenings to wherever they are from. You can also see the recordings on Interski International's YouTube page as well. And there was a question about how do I make sure I don't miss a future webinar? And if you follow the IAESS Instagram page as well as Interski International Instagram page, that's a really good place, as well as visiting the IASS.org website, as Pete Allison mentioned. So on behalf of the IASS board and everybody else in the snow sports community, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Jonathan Ballou for today's presentation. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm feeling primed and ready for winter, which is approaching fast. Thank you all.